Well, hello, Spire community. Thank you for taking the time to view my presentation of a business intelligence solution for Spire called Analytics. My name is Lou Pinto and I'm with Gemini Logic. If your current methods of analysis are too rigid or have grown to be unruly, or perhaps you spend too much time engineering and managing reports instead of analyzing and responding to results, this is where Analytics for Spire can be of great benefit to your business. Analytics is a means for you to quickly visualize and understand your data such that you can pivot and adapt to developing trends. With the real-time connection to your data, you unleash the power of your most valuable asset, your data. Imagine being able to create an unlimited number of reports, graphs, layouts, and exports to formats of varying types all on your own, and choosing from hundreds of fields, including user-defined fields and your own custom fields. Now there's a lot to unpack on this slide, so let's do that by stepping into analytics. And what we'll do is I'll show you some of the capabilities of the software, and we'll do that in the context of answering some frequently asked questions that you may have about your business. Now I've already launched the application, meaning that I've logged in with my Spire credentials and selected the company that I'd like to explore. A little bit first about the UI or the user interface. Along the top are tabs that when clicked are your entry points into the various Spire modules. We use the Spire API to honor the access module setting. So for example, if your Spire ID does not allow you to see the financial modules of the general ledger, accounts receivable, and accounts payable, then those tabs will be grayed out. I'm logged in as a Spire server admin user, so I can dig deep into my sales, into my purchase history, into my open orders and quotes, my open purchase orders, inventory across all my warehouses, my customers, my vendors, take a look at inventory movements, general ledger, payroll, accounts receivable, accounts payable, job costing, and I can even use a custom SQL statement to bring modules together and view the results set within the safe confines of analytics. So let's begin by answering a comparative analysis question related to revenue. That is, how is my revenue trending year over year, month to month? I'm not sure how you currently get to that answer, but in analytics, you get there in about 4 clicks. Our journey starts in the Sales Analysis tab in the Summary sub-tab. As with all modules, your first step is to get data. So what I've done is I've pre-populated this based on a 2-year date range, 2015 and 2016. On screen, our default layout nearly answers our revenue question. What you are viewing are sales that are summarized by customer in each of the rows. Think of a row as a subtotal, and that subtotal is then further broken down by a cross-tab total, in this case first by invoice date year, and then secondly by invoice date month. The year and the month field are special fields in analytics derived from the invoice date. Now we call this a summary grid view, but you may think of it as a pivot table such as what you see in Excel, or perhaps a matrix report. If I were to shift just a few fields around in the grid, it would give me my desired breakdown and the answer to our revenue question. So I'll start first by taking the customer details field, dragging and dropping that off the grid. What analytics does is recalculates based on the placement of fields that are presently in the row or column area. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the invoice date month field that's in the column location and drop it into the row area. Let's just widen a couple of these columns so that you can see the values that are in here. What we're now viewing are the invoice date month, that's January through December in each of the rows, and then with a cross-tab total in 2 separate columns. The first being our last year's series that we've labeled as 2015, and the second being the current year as 2016. So by virtue of the field placements that I've chosen, right now, our revenue question is answered. That is, how is my revenue doing year over year, month to month? So let's take this one step further, and let's do this by introducing the dynamic graphing utility, and let's graphically visualize what these 2 years look like. So I do that first by selecting the cells in my first series, so the 2015 year, which we're calling last year, and you can see that that trend line is building. By comparison, I do the same in my second series, what I'm calling the current year, and that line builds. So what we see in the graph below is that the first 3 months in both years follow the same trajectory, but in April last year we saw appreciable loss or appreciable drop in our sales, whereas in April this year, sales are trending upward. So this is really great information and a great reveal. However, it'll make you wonder about other matters in your data, such as what the difference amount might be in each of these months. And getting to that answer is really easy in analytics. We've got a special field called sell price total plus minus. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply drag that plus minus field, and I'm going to drop that into my data area to the right of the sell price total. And what you see now is that this plus minus creates a third column in here, which is the differences. So let's just widen things a bit here so you can see this. And what you'll also notice is that I've applied a format rule against this particular measure, and it's showing all of your negatives in red. And I've got a bunch of red values down in here, and that's because the months May through December haven't elapsed in this current year. So what I can do in analytics is I can easily filter these records and do this on the fly, and this is a wonderful feature. So in this scenario, what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate on the first 4 months of the year, those elapsed periods in both years. And when I do that, now what we're looking at is an apples to apples comparison of like periods for those 2 years. So with this discovery booked and with this general comparative understood, other questions will arise. And this is where analytics separates itself from being just a regular report designer. You're the operator behind the keyboard, asking the questions, getting to the answers by dragging and dropping fields in and out of the grid, then interpreting the results and ultimately driving decisions about your business based on data-driven analysis. For example, the question that may follow from this particular view is, how am I trending within my product code? And to get to that answer, all you need to do is simply drag the product code field and then drop it into our row area, and we'll do that to the right of the invoice date month. So let me collapse the graph here to get a little bit more screen real estate. What I'm now seeing are my sales broken down first by month and then within each month by product code. And you'll notice that my format rule persists, so I can see all of my negatives within the product code for each of the months. An equally valid perspective might be to view this first from a product code view and then secondly from the month view. And that's easily achieved simply by taking the product code field and dropping that ahead of the invoice date month. So now I'm going to collapse everything in here. So my primary grouping is by is by product code, and then the secondary grouping is by the invoice date month. And what I can quickly see is that my equip product code is up year over year, and when I reveal some more details in there and I look at the current year, I can see that this is actually trending upwards, and trending upwards in a fairly significant manner. I can introduce the part number details as a third grouping, and I can see even more details from this. So all of this is ultimately arming me with some really great information about what's happening with my business, and thus allowing me to make some good decisions, in this case on maintaining stock balances to match what appears to be climbing demand within this particular segment. So from there, what I can do is to make sure that I am maintaining proper stock balances in order to meet this demand, and then I can further investigate into my purchase orders to ensure that I'm ordering the correct amounts, which of course you can do in analytics because the purchase order module is also something to investigate and review on. So thus far I've been looking at revenue, but there are other measures of analysis that you can do in analytics. I'm going to hit the show field list, and what this reveals for me are all the available fields that you can report on. In sales analysis, we draw fields from the inventory record, the customer record, and your invoice. And scattered amongst all of these fields is a bevy of user-defined fields and even some custom fields. So let's change up this layout, and I can do that within this UI here as well. So I'm going to just drag and then I'm going to drop the product code out of the grid, remove the invoice date month, and I'm going to continue to filter on the fly here by just looking at this year's data. So I'm going to uncheck last year's year, and now I'm looking only at this year. And I'm going to remove the sell price total plus minus because I'm no longer doing a comparative analysis. So there's one of my measures, a very important one, which is revenue. Other measures that you can use to analyze your business on, one is your cost. There it is at the average cost level. Then profit, so revenue minus cost, that equals profit. Another exciting measure is your gross profit. There's your margin. and a fifth one might be commit quantity, and these are your shipped units. So you can do some analysis if you want based on volumes. So from a data analysis perspective, these I think would be the measures that most business owners would be looking at to evaluate in terms of performance and opportunity. For our next exercise, let's just focus on revenue and profit. So I'm going to remove those two measures, commit quantity, and I'm going to reintroduce the customer details to my row area. And what you will see immediately here is that one of my measures, the profit margin, has a format rule associated with it. I like to think of format rules as a means of operationalizing a KPI or key performance indicator. This format rule is demonstrating how effective I am at achieving a key business objective. In this case, getting to a margin of 40% or plus with my customer. So green is showing me those customers that meet that criterion, and red are showing me the ones that fall short. So let's do a revenue to profit margin comparison. And I can do that by sorting. So analytics allows you to do that. I'm sorting on revenue, doing that by customer. And what I see after this sort is that some of my top revenue customers are actually falling short of those desired margins that I'm looking for, that 40% margin. And I can reintroduce my product code to find out specifically within each customer what those product codes are that they're falling short on. I can also reintroduce my part number details. Again, a lot of information in here. Let me collapse everything and let's just isolate on one of these customers. So let's take a look at the Eastman Chemical Company. So a top earner, and we see that we're selling them two product codes, the equip code, making some good revenue numbers there, 73,000, but my margin is 25% or so. However, my weight product code, I'm selling approximately $7,000 worth of product, but my margin is quite high at 45%. This suggests that perhaps I should be looking for opportunities in that more profitable code, such as weights, which ultimately may lead me to a discussion with one of my sales reps who owns this relationship, and then to engage with the customer and look at opportunities to sell the weights. So this is certainly a KPI or a key KPI that I want to continue to measure, so I can save this layout. And with analytics, you can save a whole bunch of layouts. Here's an example of one that's looking at part details by sales and by profit. Here's another one looking at things geographically by the ship to province. Here's one where we focus just on a sales rep. We can see the breakdown by an ABC designation, the customer detail, product code, part number. And here's another one where we're looking at it by the major sales code. So you're probably looking at major sales code and you're wondering, what the heck is a major sales code? Well, this is an example of a newly created user-defined field that I put in my inventory. So the exciting prospect of this particular layout is that I can use inventory UDFs to report and analyze on my sales. However, when we take a closer look here, we see that about 95% of my sales are attributed to a blank code. And this is because this is a new field that I introduced, and I've got thousands of inventory items that I need to update with really no means to do a mass update. Well, this is where analytics can be your solution, because with analytics, you can do a mass update of user-defined fields. So if we take a look at our inventory details layout here, I'm going to go ahead and retrieve data. And when I retrieve data, what I see are enormous gaps in my records. So I can export this spreadsheet. I can then go into an Excel. I can add the values, and then I can use the import utility within analytics to do a mass update. And it's very easily done. All you need to do is just load your selected sheet, your Excel spreadsheet, standard format that we all use. And when I do that, in the right frame here, you'll see the spreadsheet presents itself. So it's properly structured with the warehouse and the part number in the first two columns, followed by the major sales code. I select the inventory module. There's the major sales code selected as a mapping. I'll validate my lines. And when I do that, I get a good response. And then I'm going to go ahead and import the lines. And when I import the lines, all my records update. I'll go back, revisit my grid here in inventory details. And when I look at that, there's a nice presentation of all my information. In sales analysis, when I go ahead and retrieve the records, I see that all of my details are nicely, properly segmented. Really exciting that I'm able to do this. So where do you go from here? Go to our website, go to the product page, Analytics for Spire. Download a free trial. When you download the free trial, you get it for 15 days, and you can look you can view analytics from the perspective of your data. Well, thanks for listening. Enjoy the rest of the day.